Hello everyone, welcome back to another new post of a new topic relating the economy part from GS paper 3 which will be helping you in your mains examination which will be conducted in September. So as I said that there is a possibility of us missing out on what actually made news, and so these are a series of videos touching on the very important topics to help the student become aware of the most important topics that were discussed, they made news, and which are also important from the mains point of view. So today's topic will be about the GST on the textile. Now there was a lot of hue and cry from the industry, the textile industry, regarding certain decision of the GST Council meeting that was held in September 2021. The 45th meeting, they had taken a very important decision. That was the time where the economy was just bouncing back and the government was looking at avenues to mop up the resources for revenue generation, etc. And it was at this time that the GST Council took an important decision of increasing the tax rate on man-made fiber relating to the textile industry from 5% to 12%. Now this was done keeping in mind the inverted tax structure which is found in the textile industry. So to correct this inverted tax structure and the problem related to input tax credit that the industry, the textile manufacturing units, especially the manufacturers and the MSMEs, etc., were facing with regard to the input tax credit, the inverted tax structure was giving them a problem because they could not actually get back the input tax credit which they avail on the GST, and this problem led to a lot of discussion in the GST Council meeting, where the council took the decision of increasing the tax rate from 5% to 12%. This decision of the GST Council was a backlash from the industry. They criticized the move, saying that it will lead to an increase in the price of textiles. So let us see a little bit about this, and which will help you in your mains answer writing. Now it is in the 45th meeting of the GST Council that a decision was taken to increase the GST on textiles and footwear to 12% from the then existing 5%. Now this was decided, as I said, to undo the problem of the inverted tax structure. So what is this inverted tax structure? Now an inverted tax structure it means when there is a higher rate of tax on the inputs and lower rate of tax on the output. For example, if you take the present textile sector which I am talking about, the input is your raw material, your fiber, your yarn, and then the end product is the fabric. So when you have a higher tax rate on the fiber and the yarn rather than the end product or the textile what I'm talking about, it is called as a inverted tax structure. That was what was happening actually in the textile industry. The man-made fiber, if you see, was taxed at, the fiber was made taxed at 18%, the yarn was taxed at 12%, and the fabrics were taxed at 5%. So you can see it is an inverted tax structure. This was causing a lot of problem to the textile industry because they could not avail the input tax credit. Their money was blocked, and on the government side, the government had to repay back whatever input tax credit that they were getting, and they were losing out on the revenue. So almost like they had to fund about 4,000 crore annually. This was done by the central government in the form of input tax credit. Now to undo this, they thought it's better to increase the rate on the final textile or the fabric, that is from the 5% to the 12%. So this was the decision taken, but then the textile industry wasn't happy with it. Some manufacturers and the industry players were happy because they thought that the input tax credit would be got and also the revenue of the government would be boosted. But then the textile manufacturing states, they were against this decision, and they said that if the government increases the tax on the final product, this will hurt the consumption. As I said, the economy was just bouncing back at that time, and therefore the market players were looking at more of demand and purchasing and also employment generation. So they said that if the government now increases the tax on the final product, this will hurt the demand, and consequently it will hurt the functioning of the textile industry, and then finally the jobs will be hurt. So they were against this decision, and they asked the council to bring back the rate at 5%. After listening to the demands, the GST Council then decided to form a GOM which will look into rationalization of the tax structure for the textile industry. And now this panel is headed by the Karnataka CM B.S. Bommai, who will look into the tax rationalization for the textile. So as I said, if you look at the present taxation, I'm sorry to interrupt, but now it is even now that the report has not been brought, and even in last month when the government was saying that the GST meeting is going to be conducted, there was a backlash again from the textile sector saying that they do not want the rate to be increased and they wanted the old rate of 5%. So just to illustrate you how to get an idea of how the tax rate is on the inputs, if you see, like the GST rate was 18% on an important component called as monoethylene glycol, MEG. And then it was, and on another important component of the textile industry which goes into inputs, that is manufacturing, purified terephthalate acid. So these two components were the GST was 18%, then it was 12% on the polyester yarn and 5% on the fabrics and the finished fabrics and the garments. So this was the problem, this was the inverted structure. So to increase in the GST then was approved at the council meeting in September, and they decided to address this increase of taxation would address the inverted tax structure. But the manufacturers of man-made fibers have long suffered from this duty disparity of natural fiber being having a higher GST. And so they told the council that they should not be increasing this the tax rate. Apart from that, they were also suffering from this accumulated input tax credit, but then they said if the government, keeping this in mind, increases the tax rate directly from 5% to 12%, it will hit the demand and the job creation. Several states like Gujarat, West Bengal, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh had backed the demand to not increase the levy. Telangana and West Bengal also wrote to the Prime Minister, so much so asking him to intervene, because then this increase in tax will lead to job losses and also the closure of the units. If we see the importance of this domestic textile market in India, it is like almost worth $140 billion, and the exports are to a tune of 40 billion. Now the textile and the apparel industry contributes like 2% to India's overall GDP in 2019, and 11% of the manufacturing is added to the gross value product. After that, consequently, there was a committee headed by B.S. Bommai, the CM of Karnataka. He was to go into the rate rationalization, and let me tell you that the report has still not been submitted. Now, the key concerns of the industry with regard to this increase in levy for textiles to do away with the inverted tax structure, they say that there will be a 30% drop in textile production if the rate of GST increases. Number one. Two, the tax evasion will be very easily done by the businessmen, because they might not be comfortable with the increase in the GST, which the GST Council is planning with. Three, the pace of recovery of the textile sector might slow down. It will also hit the demand. Four, retailers in the markets are likely to suffer because of the hit in demand. and also with the increase in GST, there will be the need for working capital also to go up. So all these 5 concerns have led to the GST Council to defer the increase on the tax rate increase for the textiles, and they said that once the report comes up from the GOM that is headed by BS Bommai, they will take a call on the textile GST increase. So there are few recommendations which the industry has done. Now some industry experts have said that the same GST rate should continue for all the products, that is from the input till the final. They said it's better for the government to keep it at 5%. And if you see in other countries also, unlike India, there is a single rate for all products. So some of the industry experts were calling for this. Some said that let us wait for the report of the GOM and then bring the rate to the nearest lowest slab. This was one of the recommendation. There was yet another proposal to impose a 7% GST on cotton garments, yarns and man-made fiber, and 12% GST on man-made yarn and fibers. So they said this is a workable solution as it will take care of the inversion gap of 5% in the existing tax rates. And this will also be leading to a minimal refund. So even the government revenue also will not be hurt. Now the matter is still being discussed in the GST Council, but if you see, there was a lot, the textile industry actually holds a really big market, and it is also the second largest provider of employment. There are a large number of MSME units in textile, so there was a lot of concern regarding this decision of the GST Council coming from the textile market. So apart from this inverted duty structure matter and also the increase in the GST rate for the textile, it's better as a student that you know a brief about the textile sector in India. So if you look at the textile sector in India, it is highly diversified with a wide range of segments ranging from your traditional handloom, handicraft, wool, silk products to the organized textile industry. And now we also have technical textiles. We have a technical textile policy also. So India, let me tell you, is the world's largest producer of textiles and apparels. The domestic apparel and textile industry contributes like almost 2% to the country's GDP and 7% to the industry output in value terms. If you see the share of textile, apparel and handicraft in India's total exports, it was 11.4% in 2020 and 21 according to the latest data. India holds 4% of the global trade in textile and apparel. India is the 6th largest exporter of textiles and apparel in the world. India is also the largest producer of cotton and jute in the world. It is the 2nd largest producer of silk in the world. 95% of world's hand-woven fabric comes from India. India's technical textile segment is estimated at $16 billion, almost 6% of the global market. And this is the reason that the government is standing on the technical textile. It has brought about a policy so that to increase its production in India and also giving it a brand Make in India. So the textile and the apparel industry is also, as I said, the 2nd largest employer in the country, providing a direct employment to 45 million people and 100 million people in the allied industry. And most of the units in this are MSMEs and the small and medium enterprises. So keeping the interest in mind, and also as we know that the MSMEs have been hurt the most during the pandemic period, the GST Council has taken the decision to defer the rate increase so that once the report of the GAM comes about, then they will look into the rate rationalization issue with regard to the inverted tax structure and also decide on the GST for the textile sector. So this is a very important sector of the Indian economy, and definitely I hope that this information will help you to write a good answer in case you get a question on this in the UPSC mains examination. I will see you tomorrow or in the next post with a new topic, and until then, all the very best.